Hello and welcome to Anni News, where we tell it as it is, unfiltered and uncensored. We have back with us Clare Lopez, the founder of Lopez Liberty LLC, to talk a little bit of Democratic Party and their candidate. Clare, what an honor to have you back with us.
Thanks, Annie. Always good to be with you.
Thank you. So, I will do my very best to keep a straight face on this one, Clare. But let's talk about Joe Biden. He seems to be falling apart. He seems to be changing party because very recently he endorsed the re-election of President Trump. He decided to switch sides and start running for Senate instead of president. He loses his cool and tells someone they're full of, what is going on with Joe Biden?
Annie, I think we all realize that he is a compromise candidate, if you will, for a Democratic Party that has been truly spooked by the popular rise of the Bolshevik Bernie Sanders, making his second run at the presidency. And to counter the rise of Bernie Sanders and to forestall any chance that he could win the nomination, all the stops have been pulled out by the Democratic Party, including many of the other earlier candidates giving up their candidacy, their presidential run, ending their campaigns in order to throw their support behind Joe Biden, because, well, he's all they got. I guess we can feel sympathy for them, but not really, not much.
Agreed. I don't mean to be a mean person, but I can't help to think how desperate the Democratic Party is getting, that number one, they're getting behind Joe Biden, knowing there is no chance that he can pull this off. Joe Biden cannot get through a single sentence without somehow losing track of what he was saying. I mean, being a president of the United States of America isn't that simple, and I'm pretty sure they all know that. So I understand you say they got behind Joe Biden because they had no other option. No one else was possibly a proper candidate, and they're trying to counter Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the contrast with President Trump just couldn't be any more stark in front of our eyes. We're watching our president conduct rallies all over the country with tens and tens of thousands of people, both inside and outside of arenas, that are packed to the rafters, with others outside who cannot even get in. And then he carries on, sometimes reading a teleprompter, but very often not, and just sort of riffing off the cuff, at which, by the way, he's quite good, and doing this for as long as an hour and a half, 2-hour stretch on his feet at 73, years old, with the energy of a 20-something. And, poor Joe Biden, his handlers can't even allow him to speak more than perhaps 7 minutes or so, because he'll go off into uncharted territory, as you were mentioning, forgetting where he is, forgetting who's his wife and who's his sister, forgetting what office he's running for, and so on. I mean, in a way, one can feel that it's tragic watching him sort of come unglued in front of our eyes. But you can't help but smile at some of the gaffes he makes. But in other cases, for example, when he turns angrily against people who have come, in an audience to listen to him speak, or a town hall or a meet and greet or what have you, and he turns on them with anger and cussing, not the way to win friends and influence people, really.
Exactly. But let me take it here. Well, everybody knows Joe Biden, poor thing. But Democratic Party are standing behind him strongly, all of them vouching for him, pushing him, publicly humiliating him. But the interesting part that you brought up, and thank you for bringing it up, is the fact that apparently very recently, a few days ago, Joe Biden released his coronavirus plan. And the article was published on American Thinker. And one cannot help but to look and just feel like, oh, wait, this sounds just exactly like President Trump. But when President Trump is doing it, Democrats are literally bashing him. But Joe Biden wants to do it. It's a good idea. Again, it takes us back to where Democrats, well, they're just not shy to use anything, or as you call it, to weaponize any situation to bash President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, this is a true, a real health emergency crisis. It's not a game, a political game to be played by weaponizing tactics to use this coronavirus outbreak in the political arena. So here we've got this American Thinker article written by Andrea Midberg just a few days ago. And as you said, Annie, she lists the various items in Joe Biden's just released plan to combat the coronavirus outbreak. And as we're reading it, looking at it, the different points, we'll say, wait a minute, I thought I've heard of that before. You're going to help develop a vaccine, going to deploy supplies all over the country, deliver economic help to those Americans most hardest hit by the virus outbreak and the measures taken to combat it. Emergency paid leave for Americans who are affected with staying off the job, perhaps. Wait a minute, that was totally plagiarized. You know, kids in college are required to run their papers, their term papers and other essays through a computer program that checks out whether the wording, and it's like a cluster of no more than 3 or 4 words, whether their wording is taken from some other source without proper citation or attribution. Maybe that's what Joe Biden ought to do with his coronavirus plan.
Well, no, we both know Democrats are above the law, regulations, standards. None of that applies to them, which is sad. At the same time, it worries me that people in America aren't seeing it. It is tragic when they weaponize such a health emergency. Real people are dying, real people are suffering, and all they care about, Nancy Pelosi and her entire team of Democrats, all they care about is somehow take advantage of the situation to possibly elect Joe Biden, which again, Joe Biden himself endorsed the re-election of President Trump. So I guess you should all go vote for President Trump. But
he did say that, didn't he? Yes.
Here's my very last question for you, Claire. And honestly, personally, I want to know, as an expert that you are, what does it take? What does it take for people of America to genuinely see the problem with Democratic Party?
Well, I think the first thing to do is perhaps to get off of social media and stop watching the mainstream media and mainstream cable news channels. Stick to official pronouncements from leadership figures in the medical field, like the leadership of CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, the NIH, National Institutes of Health, our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary Azar. Listen to these experts, listen to these medical experts, and yes, listen to what the president and the vice president actually are proposing and implementing, and then pay attention to how our CEOs admirably really are coming together to work with the Trump administration. Ordinarily, perhaps tough competitors one against the other in the marketplace. CVS and Walgreens and Walmart and Target and all of these commercial outlets. Ordinarily tough competitors to one another. But in this case, coming together. Pay attention to what they're saying. Pay attention to what the medical experts are saying, and pay attention to what our senior administration officials are saying. I think that'll give you a far better picture of what is really going on. And I'm sure you've got enough toilet paper. Stay out of Walmart.
Oh, you beat me to it. I was about to add the note of, trust me, you got enough toilet paper. Leave some for those who don't have it. Thank you so much, Claire, for joining us and answering all these questions that I'm sure a lot of Americans had. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Annie.
And thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell. And we will see you soon. Goodbye.